Now, my name is Drew Pierce. I'm the Dare County Emergency Management Director. Thank you all for being here today. It's really great to have you. Eric started doing some introductions and talking about Eric Hayden is our coordination meteorologist down in Newport Morehead City, down south of us. But he's truly a great friend of Dare County in the northern, in his part of the world up here in the northeast North Carolina. His boss is right back there in the blue shirt, David Glenn. I've got to point David out because David's the meteorologist in charge of the Newport Morehead City Weather Office. And David's been at that office longer than Eric. But Eric really knows, Eric knows, David knows Dare County as well. And they are pros in what they do. This is a hurricane community forum. Eric is going to run through some of the hard stuff, the weather stuff, because he's a professional meteorologist, but he's got some preparedness tips in here as well. And then I'm going to come in and just talk a little bit about what we do in Dare County to try to get ready and what the things we need. And most importantly, I got to somehow convince you that there's a reason for you to leave, because it doesn't matter what's happened in the past. It's what's coming in the future that's going to get you. So I got to convince you that you're going to have a plan to get out of here when those things are there. You're going to get up and go. So with that said, Eric, all yours.
All right, really appreciate everyone joining us. Drew will laugh at this, but usually I don't look like this with long hair and a beard. I haven't done a play since 5th grade, but my family convinced me to do Fiddler on the Roof. The last show is this weekend, so I have not cut my hair or beard since April because we're supposed to grow it out. So that's why I look like this. But I did tease people that if this beard keeps storms away through this upcoming weekend, I'll keep it through the fall. That's going to help us out. So we try to break things down as simple as possible because we have people here that have been here forever and folks that just moved to the area. Do one thing after today's talk to get prepared. Much easier to do it now when the stores are fully stocked. You're not stressed. You're going to make good decisions. Focus on the impacts. Don't just focus on the category of the storm. We're going to talk about that. And water is what kills people. So if you just remember that, then we've done our duty here today. So the hurricane outlook, raise your hand if you've heard that's going to be a really bad hurricane season. So it could be. It's a forecast. We get it right all the time, right? Now, I know you've said those jokes. It's the only job you can have and be wrong all the time. I know you've said it, especially those folks chuckling. It is a forecast. It could be right or wrong. We don't know how many storms we're going to get in Dare County or if we're going to have any at all. However, it's an 85% chance this year we're going to have an above normal year. We don't usually go that high of a number. So usually I just say it takes one storm to make an impact in our community. We're waving our hands today and saying it looks like it's going to be an active year. So you really should be taking this serious, especially this upcoming year. One of your best resources is our local weather service office in Newport Morehead City. You might say that's not local to Dare County, but we have 122 offices in the country. It's not Atlanta, it's not New York City, it's not Washington, D.C., it's Eastern North Carolina. So we're very versed in what's happening here. We have roots that go back to 1874 in Dare County. So we've been here a long time. So even though we're not living right in your community, we're just down the road. So one of your single best resources is our website, weather.gov. You can click on Eastern North Carolina or you can put /Newport. For those that need help, Mr. David in the light blue shirt can help you. That's a QR code in the upper right. If you take a picture of that, then you can save it to your phone for our website. Lots of information, the forecast, briefings, which we send to Drew, tons of information on that. And if you move out of the area or you can't remember, the joke with that is if it's the weather you love, it's weather.gov. That's all you have to remember. And you pay for it, your tax money at work. So please use our local page for information. Another good page, which you can get information from on ours as well, is the National Hurricane Center. We're all together. We're all within the Weather Service, and that's hurricanes.gov. The reason why I tell you this is there's not a lack of information out in the community. You're gonna have plenty of information, social media, local meteorologists, information overload. What you need to focus on is official, consistent forms of information so that you know what to plan for and what to take serious. So that's why we're talking about official resources. Hurricanes.gov. Is anybody familiar with this tropical weather outlook? If you raise your hand if you've ever looked at that. You should be looking at it every day, first thing in the morning. It's updated 4 times a day. You don't have to track it all day, but just take a peek. It shows a low, medium, and high chance, if there is one, of a storm forming in the next 7 days. So it's just 30 seconds. You just look at this. Do I need to be concerned or not? Your local news will show this, but you can go straight to the website and get that. Again, hurricanes.gov, or you can get it from our page. Very, very good. Lo and behold, the current one has a 60% chance of something happening in the next 7 days. Still too far out to know if we're going to be impacted, if at all. But this is just your first step. Before it gets a name, before it's making an impact on our community. Hey, you know, I've kind of half worked on my hurricane kit, but it's not complete. Maybe I should start getting that hurricane kit ready. So Tropical Weather Outlook is very, very good to use. Most of you should be familiar with this graphic, the forecast cone. It shows where the storm is going to go. This shows the most likely path of the center of the storm, just the center of the storm. Doesn't show you who will be impacted and who won't. Doesn't show you how much rain you're going to have. Doesn't give you any information about storm surge. This is not a, I'm in it, I'm worried. Oh, I'm out of it, I don't have to worry about it. A hurricane's not a dot on a map, and it's hundreds of miles across. So if you're anywhere in the vicinity of this forecast cone, you should be paying attention. So if it's anywhere from Florida to Delaware, you should be paying attention. It's not a, hey, it's hitting the Outer Banks. Oh, now I don't have to worry about it. It's hitting Myrtle Beach. I don't need to worry anymore. If you're anywhere near it, you should be paying attention. And through the years, it's gotten skinnier and skinnier and skinnier because we become more accurate. It's actually based on past error. In addition, as the storm gets closer to you, it's going to get skinnier because it's only supposed to show where the center is going, not who's impacted, who won't be impacted, storm surge, or anything like that. So we heard that you all like pop quizzes. You know, you like some trivia. So I don't yell it out if you know it, but this is a storm that impacted our area in the past, some communities more than others. This is a forecast cone 48 hours out. You will notice that we're not anywhere really all that close to it. If it went to the far left of the forecast, you know, center line, then yes, we'd be closer, but it's not too close. 48 hours out, this happened in October, and this storm produced the highest surge on record, at least for our gauge, in Hatteras Island. What do you think? October, big surge. They had some flooding up in the northern end of the island, like Nags Head, Kill Double Hills, about a foot of rain inland from us, but really high surge in Hatteras that caught some folks off guard. Isabel? Close, but it's not Isabel. That is a good guess. That's a good.
Have something to do with the barge?
It didn't have anything to do with the barge, but before I go to the answer, I want you to look really carefully. That cone is near us, but it's not over us. That was Hurricane Matthew. So it did not make landfall in our community, but it caused huge impacts. The point that I want to drive home, if you're anywhere near the cone, you should be paying attention. You don't need to be a meteorologist. You need to listen to what we think the impacts will be. Surge, wind, rainfall, whatever it is. So don't focus on just a category, and do not just focus on landfall. If you're anywhere near that, you should be paying attention. I want to hammer that with Matthew. Some other good information on the Hurricane Center site. It's also on our page as well. On the left is a time of arrival for wind. If you make a decision to stay, you make a decision to leave, you make a decision that I need my yard cleaned up by this time, those are good graphics. They'll show you when we think the winds will get here, tropical storm force, in a worst case or most likely scenario. And on the far right, the potential storm surge, we're going to go over that. Mr. Drew and the county have the polls across the county that he's probably going to talk about, showing the levels of what storm surge means above normally dry ground. We do predictions for that when the storm gets closer. All this information is at your fingertips. It's on the website, whether it's from the Hurricane Center or from us. And last but not least, social media is a great way to get information from us. And it's also a great thing you can do for the community. I mentioned there's tremendous amount of information out there. You don't do any good to the community sharing what might happen with the storm next week, because we don't know. And anybody that says they know is wrong. It's too far out. There's the ideas that might do this, there's ideas that might do that, and guess what? It's going to change. So you can help your community by sharing official sources of information like ourselves. So NWS Morehead City. It's not that we get it right every time to the specific point, but we're very deliberate with our message and being consistent and not wobbling all over the place. So wherever you are on social media, you can find us, specifically on YouTube. If you want to see what we're saying to the county, it's recorded on YouTube. It's not a 30-second video, it's a 10-minute video of what we think is going to happen. So if you want a lot of information, it's all publicly available. You've paid for it with your tax money. So social media is a really good place to find it. We're here to talk about preparedness. The county has great resources. We also have one at the local level. It's our website. If you just add hurricane prep, lots of information, how to prepare your home, how to prepare your yard. What does it mean to evacuate? We have something called Know Your Zone and evacuation zones. What does that mean? What should I have in my kit? Graphics in Spanish, videos for the deaf and hard of hearing. I mentioned this at the top. Planning now is key. If you plan today and you make your decisions, you're going to make really good decisions. Whereas if it's 3 days prior to a storm, you're probably not going to make the best decision. So this website is very, very good. And it's really a 3-step process. The first step is how vulnerable are you? And it's not just weather related. We get a lot of storms in our area, but what is your vulnerability in your household? You have elderly parents. Is somebody in your home reliant on oxygen or electricity for their life? For me, it's an inconvenience to not have air conditioning, but it's not life-threatening. For you not to have electricity, it might be a big deal. Do you live in a low-lying area? Have you had surge before? Can you pick up and evacuate easily? You might not be able to. So your vulnerability is step one. That really determines what else you do. My parents recently moved down to where I live, so my vulnerability is higher because now I have 2 families, my wife and 3 kids and parents to evacuate, as I said. So that my vulnerability is higher. These are things you need to think about when you're making your kit or decision to leave. Hurricane kit, you know the drill: food, water, medicine, anything you need to survive. So if folks have young kids, it's formula and diapers. If you have pets, it's cat food and dog food. If you have medical needs, it's making sure you're filled on your prescriptions. You have contacts, your glasses, anything you need to survive completely on your own. Bare minimum is 3 days. That's the ground floor. You should be doing that bare minimum. If you can do a week, that would be better. You might be okay in your home. You might say 7 days, but the store might not be open. You might not be able to get to the store. Things are slow after a storm. So having as much as you can on your own to be on your own is the best thing you can do. And again, we're talking about things that you can cook that are not reliant on power and things like that. If you need any tips, it's on our website. But again, try to push it to 7 days. We know some folks in our community are struggling. They can't go out and get 7 days worth of items this weekend. That's okay. That's why we talk about preparedness in May, in June, in July, the whole season. This weekend, encourage them to get bottled water. Start with the needs, what you really need. And then next weekend, maybe canned goods. Or 2 weekends from now, canned goods. So start small, break it into parts, and that'll spread out the financial impact, but it'll also ensure that you get it done. Step 3, again, what is your vulnerability? Have a kit. Everybody in this room should have a plan to evacuate. Again, everybody in this room should have a plan to evacuate. I know we don't leave because it's hard to get back. I know some people's livelihoods are dependent on recovering as quickly as possible. I understand all that. But I also understand that I want you to be here next year to hear the talk. If we get a really bad storm, your life is more important than anything that you leave behind. I understand it's very challenging to get back and all the nuances of post-storm recovery. But at least do me a favor and just in the back of your mind, I'm never going to leave. That Mr. Eric is crazy. I've been here all my life. Just think of one place you would go, at least one. If you can, try to think of a couple options. Don't just go to Raleigh. Sometimes it's just as bad in Raleigh or worse. Like one young lady, we were talking about Floyd earlier. So have multiple options. You know the relatives that like to come down and visit you because we live in Paradise? Go visit them. Have a northern route or southern route. When I grew up in Maryland, so that usually was option A before my parents moved down here. That was option A for me, and then option B was family in upstate of South Carolina. So have multiple options. Where you want to go is going to be storm dependent. Sometimes you're going to want to go north. Sometimes you're gonna go south. A lot of people ask about sheltering. That's not our lane, that's Mr. Drew's lane, but the shelter is a last resort. That's a place of safety, not of comfort. It's not the Hilton. You want to be with family or relatives or at a hotel. So try to look up those things now. And again, include everybody. If you've got pet, those are, folks are included in the plan too. You don't want to leave them behind. So why am I going over this over and over again? For those that raised their hand that have lived here less than 5 years, we've locked the doors so you can't leave. But we are the most vulnerable stretch of coastline in the entire United States. Again, we're the most vulnerable stretch of coastline in the entire United States. We live in paradise. We live in an awesome area. Our responsibility is to be prepared each and every year. And then when it doesn't happen, we're ready for the next year. We restock our kit and we do it all over again next season because we live by the beach. We live with water all around us. That's why we moved here. It's awesome. But it's our responsibility to be prepared if we get a storm. If you needed to know in numbers form, these are some of the names that you'll hear locals talk about. Irene and Isabel, even going back Sandy, or even tropical storms like Michael, or you hear Dorian, especially from Hatteras Village down through Ocracoke. These are the storms. This is how it looks like in our community when we get storms. We live on a barrier island. We're very vulnerable. We know this. So it's our responsibility to be prepared and attend classes like this. You can probably tell from this, I'm not going to ask you when the peak of hurricane season is. So I kind of gave away the answer. What I want you to get out of this is a nice little graph, and it shows the peak is in mid-September. Long season. It officially starts June 1st. We've had storms in May. We have storms well into the month of October. So when a new resident says, we've made it through summer, we're almost into August, phew, looks like we're not going to have any storms this year, or when the kids go back to school, or better yet, when it's after Labor Day, whew, looks like we escaped another hurricane season. No, no, no. Usually from about August 1st to September 30th, you'll see that graph goes way up. Our chances day by day are going way up. So it's not too late to prepare, but we're getting close. Some of our worst storms have been well into the fall. So just kind of keep that in mind if you didn't realize. It correlates with the peak water temperatures. Hurricanes get their energy from warm water, and that's when it typically peaks. So we have a lot of experience in this room, but there's still a lot of messaging challenges. That's why they're hiring people like me. I can forecast. I know how to interpret weather maps. We'll continue to get more accurate, and that's important, but we're really trying to work on this, messaging. A lot of people focus on the category of the storm. So be honest, if you have said this or your significant other has said this, I'm not going to leave unless it's a 3, right? We've said that. I'm not going to leave unless it's a 2. I'm not going anywhere unless it's a 4. The category rating is important. Down our way when Florence hit and it was a 4, was I worried? Yes. I'm not saying to ignore it, but it's only part of the puzzle. Does not tell you how long the storm sits over you, how much rain you're going to have, what side of the storm you got hit by. Did you just have a tropical storm last week? It doesn't say any of that. It's just a number, and it tells us the intensity of the wind. It's important, but it's not everything. For the locals, if you need any more, push, Irene, Hermine was just a tropical storm. Michael, just a tropical storm. Ophelia, we've had almost 200 deaths and almost $200 billion in damage through 2020 from just ones. So please do not just focus on the category. Never, ever, ever say, I'm not leaving because it's just a 1. Pay attention to all the aspects. You don't have to be a meteorologist to know if it's Tropical Storm Eric and we're going to get 20 inches of rain, it's going to be a problem. So category is important, but it's not the whole puzzle. The other one that I want to emphasize is water is what kills. We used to have a nice pie graph. David and I loved it. We're meteorologists, we're scientists. It showed all the ways you could die in a tropical cyclone. But we said, you know what? Let's just show people pictures. 85% of people that die in hurricanes are water related. Again, 85% of people that die in hurricanes, it's water related. And that's not reflected in the category at all. So that could be storm surge, that could be heavy rain, it could be rip currents. And most of those deaths occur in vehicles. I know Florence wasn't a big deal up here, but we lost 15 people in our state. 11 of the 15 were in vehicles. So never cross a flooded road. Water is very powerful, it can carry you away. And those are just some examples in our local community of how water has been devastating. Past experience can be a good or bad thing. No two storms are alike. You could have been here forever. Ophelia, Irene, Matthew, all of them, and you didn't have water this high. Well, a storm may hit differently next time. It may hit at high tide when it hit at low tide last time. You may be on the right side of the storm this time instead of the left side of the storm. So past experience can kind of be misleading. Some people will not leave because they think they've been through the worst. And then don't anchor on a forecast. I mentioned you don't need to check 4 times a day, but once a day, maybe in the evening, and once when you wake up. Just check on the forecast. If we get a storm next week, as we get closer, pay attention to updates. Don't look at it 5 days out and say, oh, we're supposed to go to Bermuda, I'm not worried about it. And then 3 days out, we're under a hurricane watch. Check back for updates, make sure you pay attention to what's happening. And we emphasize pre-storm for a reason, but post-storm is actually where we're losing more lives now. So you've got that nice fancy generator, make sure you know how to use it, that it's not in a garage. You might say, I didn't come to this class to know that I shouldn't put a generator in your garage. We lose people because of this. When we get water, the water is nasty. You don't want to be out traipsing through the water. We've lost people due to infections in Eastern North Carolina because they were out in the water. If you decide to stay, stay put. Don't be out in the yard going through things. If you're not usually on a ladder, if you're not usually doing yard work, let somebody else do it. We lose people to heart attacks, falling off ladders, electrocution, carbon monoxide. These are not things that I make up out of some crazy movie. This is what has happened in our community across Eastern North Carolina. So be safe afterwards. Don't be in a rush to get back. Don't be in a rush to clean up. Be smart, be slow. Things are going to be slow. Don't lose your life after the storm when you've done all that preparedness. So we're going to end with these 5 impacts. If I'm telling you not to pay attention to the category, do you need to get on, do you need to watch the Weather Channel 24/7 or your local news out of Virginia Beach? No, just look at what the impacts are going to be and then make your decisions based on that. So you should be looking at how much rain are we going to have? What's the height of the storm surge? Rip currents, we're going to talk about that. What is the wind? Wind is important. And then tornadoes, we're going to talk about that as well. So our biggest vulnerability here on a barrier island would be storm surge. So it has cut our island in half. It's limited access to where we can't get out unless we take the ferries. So storm surge is our biggest vulnerability here. When we say 3 to 5 feet, 5 to 8 feet, that's above low-lying areas near water, where the water may be 3, 4, 5, 6 feet higher. Mr. Drew's going to talk about this more, but there's poles across the community to show you what I'm about 6 feet of water, how high that is. The other thing is we have a lot of open water, like the Pamlico Sound. That doesn't take into account wave action on top of it. So that can be more devastating when you pile those waves on top of that as well. A storm does not have to make landfall in our area to cause storm surge. And I need to change the word Florence. Florence was not a big deal for you. You know what I need to change that to is Matthew. Matthew didn't make landfall in our community. Did not make landfall in our community. Was it really bad? Yes. So if it's anywhere in our general vicinity, we should be paying attention. And I hope that drives the point home. Yes, pay attention to all aspects of the storm, but do not just focus on where the landfall will be. It's many, many hundreds of miles across. Here's some other examples. We can get storm surge. I know we might have folks Hatteras Island specific, but I didn't know if we had people across the county. So, Hurricane Irene in 2011 was bad for a lot of us, 4.5 feet in downtown Manio. I think Mr. David got this picture. Michael was just a tropical storm, and it was almost as bad as Irene in terms of flooding up in Manio. So sometimes people can be skeptical of the storm surge forecast. It can and will happen in our community. When we have a shallow sound like we do with the Pamlico Sound, when it blows out, it comes right back. So it can and will happen. It's happened before. It will happen again. A reasonable worst case scenario I don't try to convince people to leave. I try to convince people that it can be as bad as it can be. Have a vivid imagination of how bad it can be, because it can happen. It's not to scare anybody, it's just reality. Reality is a Category 3 storm hitting Dare County. That's not some end of world scenario. That's not something Mr. David and I said, let's just make up the craziest thing. That's reality. It's going to happen. So Category 3 storm, worst case scenario. It may be hard to see the communities, but we're going to go from north to south. Anywhere you see yellow on the map is above 3, and anywhere you see above 9 or above 9 feet is red, above 3 would be yellow. So you can see pretty good surge as we move down our way, especially for the new folks in town. That backside of the sound, so to the western side, toward the Pamlico Sound, 9 feet of surge. That is possible. And we've had some high surge values from storms with Isabel in the past. And as we head a little bit farther south, in the 3 to 6 foot range down in a little bit farther south toward the village itself, but you can see some reds in there as well. So we've had some of these values with Isabel. So it's not some, and that was in the 3. It's not some crazy scenario that will never happen. It will happen down the road at some point. So please keep that in mind when you're making your decisions to stay or go. So storm surge, that's our highest vulnerability where we live. Second would be flooding. Not really flash flooding where we are. When we took the trip down through Pea Island, we were kind of surprised there's water on the road today. You know, pretty ho-hum day. We haven't had any big storms. There's water on the road today. When you have those dunes and you're near sea level, you don't have drainage. So if you get 5, 10, 15 inches of rain, you're going to have flooding. Not necessarily flash, it's not necessarily like moving, but it's very, very deep. So that's what Kill Devil Hills looked like in Hurricane Matthew, even farther north away from the center of the storm. It didn't make landfall, and they got flooding in the northern part of the county. The point of emphasis with this is that hurricane's category is not an indication of how much rain is going to fall. A Category 3 storm doesn't produce more rain than a Category 1. Category is only related to wind. So please keep that in mind. Pay attention to rainfall amounts. I left this one in here because I said we don't get flash flooding in our community. If you get any type of topography, I'm not talking Asheville or Boone or Grandfather Mountain. I'm talking as you go to Raleigh, that first hill you hit, you realize you've lived on a flat area for a long time because you're like, wow, this is a little bit of a hill. When we get just inland, we have some hills and we can have devastating flash flooding. So if you make a decision to leave, stay away. Don't be in a rush to get back. Water is extremely powerful. About 1.5 to 2 feet can carry your car away. What you don't realize is the road may not exist underneath it. So we lose a lot of lives driving through areas like that. The other thing, emergency manager pointed this out, or I think somebody from Public Works, the white pipes there on the side, that's your water coming to your house. So a lot of people say, I live up high, I'm safe, I've got 7 days worth of supplies, I've got a generator. You might be fine, but things getting to you may not. We're the first responders. When you have a medical emergency, they can't get to you because of this. So it's not all about where you live. You might be all right. You're good to go. You've been through every storm. But it's about trying to get to you. If the roads are washed out and you have a medical emergency, they cannot get to you. So that's why it's important to prepare for these storms, and with flooding specifically, turn around, don't drown. I'll skip through this pretty quick because last time I checked, Drew, we don't have any rivers in the county. That still has not changed. But as you come back to the area, it can take a while to get back here. The rivers come up and they stay up for a while. So your routes may vary, especially if you're coming from the south through like our area, Kinston and Greenville, Lumberton, I-95 can flood for many days and weeks afterwards. So that's why I leave that one in there, not because we have rivers in Dare County. Rip currents are our biggest killer in the area. Does anybody remember Lorenzo? I got it up on the map. Just that big storm. So you do. What do you remember about Lorenzo?
People doing some great supping out on the ocean.
Yes. So we did have a large swell. So Lorenzo was a Category 5 storm, but it was 2,000 miles away. We lost 4 people along the North Carolina coast because of Lorenzo. And the lady up front's like, Lorenzo, I don't remember Lorenzo. How do we lose 4 people? Lorenzo. Rip currents. Anytime you have a powerful storm out there, whether it hits you or not, it's going to produce strong swell at the beach, whether it's ahead of the landfalling system or one that never gets here. So when we put out messages for rip currents, please share that with the community. That is one of our biggest killers in our community is rip currents. So that's why we include them on briefings. That's why we put it on social media. Because again, it does not have to make landfall here. It's 2,000 miles away, 8 people on the East Coast and 4 in North Carolina. That was more than Dorian. A lot of us remember Dorian, especially Hatteras Village South. We lost more lives because of Lorenzo than Dorian. As we round home, wind is certainly important. It's usually going to cause property damage. Could it kill you? Yes, but statistically less than a 10% chance. It's usually water, water, water. We picked Hurricane Arthur for a reason. That was 2014, small, compact storm. It did produce some pretty good wind up here, close to 100 miles per hour, especially gusts. It was a Category 2 storm. It was small and compact. Do you remember Arthur? No, a little bit. You remember Irene? Are you sure? Irene was a big one up here, but it was just a 1, and Arthur was a 2. Irene was bigger, slower moving, no trickery. It hit around the same spot, Cape Lookout. But Irene was a 1, and it was slow moving, and it caused a lot of devastation up here. Arthur, not so much. It was a 2, faster moving, smaller storm. So again, every storm is unique. Not all storms are alike. And last are tornadoes. It's spinning, so it's not hard to surmise that you potentially could get tornadoes with any tropical storm or hurricane. You're probably not out shopping, but what you need to have is your phone on and make sure it's not on Do Not Disturb. You need to have a way to seek shelter in the lowest part of your building immediately. Because tropical tornadoes happen very, very quick. That's what happened to these folks in Hatteras Village. They were okay. They got the tornado warning before it happened. Usually you only have minutes to respond. They're very, very quick. So if you are going to stay, have a battery powered radio, make sure your phone's on, charged, all that, because we do get storms and they can occur well away from the storm. Down our way in Dorian, we had tornadoes with the first outer rain bands. So you know when we say the hurricane's going to make landfall at X time, that doesn't mean when your impacts start. They start hundreds of miles away from that center. So please keep that in mind. So at this point, especially for new folks, I kind of feel a little bit overwhelmed. It's the most vulnerable stretch of coastline. We get a lot of storms. I saw all the pictures, how bad it can be. We don't have any control over that. We live next to the beach. We live in an awesome area. I don't have any control over if we're going to have a storm or not, no matter how much I joke about growing this beard out. But you do have control over sharing this information. You do have control over doing something today. You know what? I don't have water. I'm going to go get a case of bottled water. You do have control not to focus on the category of the storm if you had not heard that message. You do have control over not forgetting about after the storm, not rushing into things. So we do have a lot of control over things in our community. So are any questions before we turn it over to Drew or anything? Anything anybody wants to share or anything that they were not, we're going to transition to Drew unless we have anything. And Mr. David, Drew, and James and I will be up here through the whole time. So if you've got any questions, feel free to come up, and I hope you learn something, especially for those that may be new to the community. So you should be good to go.
Let's give Eric a round of applause. I hope Eric is so good at telling that weather story, that just what the weather's going to do. I really appreciate him. If you've been to a presentation before that we've done, I would have covered a lot of what Eric did with preparedness stuff. And Eric really is incorporated into his talk. So my presentation is going to be somewhat different than if you were with us before. I'm going to try to give you a little bit of a frosting on the cake that Eric just baked for you, to try to give a little bit of a closure to it and get you going, get you thinking about going, because we need to convince everybody to have a plan. But with that, my title is Get Ready. And I also embedded some videos in here. You may have seen the videos already. If you have, that's great. If you haven't, I hope you'll enjoy them. You might recognize they might be a little bit old, not that old, but there are some pictures of people that may not be on in their positions any longer that have changed, but the message of the video is still the same. So with that said, we always get a lot of questions about who makes the decisions. How are emergency decisions made in Dare County? So this is about a 4 to 5 minute video that hopefully will explain that for you. Rather than me talk to you about it, I'm you'll see me, but you'll hear it from some others.
On this delicate sandbar, emergencies happen every day and tough decisions need to be made. Most days, those decisions are made by first responders who take action and solve problems quickly using the authority and resources they have at hand. But what happens when an emergency exceeds their capabilities or has the potential to bring widespread impacts to a town or across the entire county? The impacts can come from anywhere: a storm, a man-made disaster, a public health crisis, an act of terror, civil unrest, or a chemical release, just to name a few. When we are facing widespread or severe damage, injury, or loss of life or property, how are decisions made to keep our community safe?
In North Carolina, counties and towns operate under authority granted by state statute. For emergencies, North Carolina General Statute 166A, the Emergency Management Act, provides the authority and responsibility that local governments have to prevent, prepare for, respond to, and recover from emergencies. The Act defines an emergency as an occurrence or imminent threat of widespread or severe damage, injury, or loss of life or property resulting from any natural or man-made threat or hazard. Counties are responsible for emergency management efforts to include coordinating activities with towns. To meet this responsibility, counties and towns establish emergency management agencies, expend funds to keep people and property safe, implement emergency management plans, provide emergency management response resources, and declare local states of emergency when needed to ensure public health and safety. The county or a town will declare a local state of emergency when they believe an emergency exists or is imminent. In there, each town and the county have an emergency management ordinance that designates the authority to declare a state of emergency to the town's mayor, the chair of the board of commissioners, or their designee. While these individuals have the authority to declare a state of emergency and impose prohibitions and restrictions, they need the best information available to make the best possible decisions to protect public health and safety.
When an emergency has occurred or is looming on the horizon, we turn to our emergency operations plan. The plan, required by Chapter 92 of the Dare County Code, provides a framework that brings decision makers, subject matter experts, and others together to share information and coordinate decision making. In the plan, we use the term senior leaders to identify decision makers who have the authority to declare a local state of emergency and impose restrictions and prohibitions. The term is also used to describe others who have authorities they can use independently to protect public health and safety. The National Park Superintendent and the Dare County Sheriff have authorities outside of the Emergency Management Act, making them key senior leaders who routinely collaborate and coordinate actions with the chair of the Dare County Board of Commissioners and our town mayors.
When challenges arise and actions are needed to ensure public health and safety, our senior leaders, along with other key personnel, come together. They meet either in person or virtually and receive briefings from subject matter experts on what to expect, ways to mitigate impacts, and how best to protect our community.
While we always focus on ensuring public health and safety, we never set aside how actions taken impact business and community activities. Often, senior leaders will reach out to key partners and community leaders to gather information and keep them informed as tough decisions are made. Depending on the circumstance, a state of emergency may be declared. While no one wants to impose prohibitions and restrictions, we know that without them, those we serve may be put unnecessarily in harm's way. While these senior leaders has independent authority, either from the Emergency Management Act or other statutes that allows them to take actions on their own, they always strive to reach consensus. Once decisions are made, they are captured in a written state of emergency declaration and it's quickly communicated to the public. As the situation changes, decision makers are briefed when changes are needed. The declaration is updated with prohibitions and restrictions being added or removed. These efforts continue until the emergency no longer threatens public health and safety. When an emergency crosses jurisdictional boundaries, which is anticipated to bring widespread impacts to the county, a state of emergency may be signed by the chair of the board of commissioners, outlining all decisions, detailing who provided consent. Often towns will issue their own declaration signed by their mayor. At times, the declaration may be issued by just the county or the town.
Just like the everyday decisions made by a lifeguard, a law enforcement officer, firefighter, emergency medical technician, or a 911 call taker to save lives or protect property. Senior leaders are empowered to take actions to ensure public health and safety when our community is facing widespread or severe damage, injury, or loss of life or property. These are tough decisions made with the best information available from subject matter experts and key stakeholders that lead to actions that protect our community until emergency conditions are no longer present. For more information, visit www.darenc.com/emergency management.
Well, I'm hoping that gave you some insights on the emergency decision-making process that we have here. If you noticed in some of in the video, at one point, there was a guy in a blue shirt standing like this, pointing at the screen. That was an incident meteorologist named Scott Kennedy, who was deployed. I think that was for Dorian. He was with us in the EOC, helping us make sure we had the best information possible to provide to the senior leaders. He was also there to help us brief anybody else who needed to know what the conditions were changing as Dorian came and went throughout their county. So we have our partners from the Weather Service, not just with us in Morehead City, but when we have a large scale event coming on, they come up and are with us. And I will say, Eric and David won't say this, but if you ever have the opportunity to promote the National Weather Service with an elected official at the federal level, do so. They need as much support as they can get to ensure they're properly resourced and budgeted. It costs about $4 per person to budget for the National Weather Service, and at times their budget is at risk. They are a key partner. So if you have the opportunity to tell Murphy, Tillis, or Bud about the Weather Service, please do. They need that budgetary support. Enough of my politicking, that's it, that'll be it. But the Weather Service, without them, we don't have forecasts. We're not able to do what we need to do to make those right decisions. And they're with us when we're doing that. Eric, the same slide up here, things to do now. Determine the risk from water and wind. Get prepared, things that you need to do now to get ready. And I'm going to just throw a little icing on the cake that Eric shared with you a bit with some of these. What's your risk? Everybody know what their flood risk is? My head's going like this. You're probably worried about it if you have flood insurance. It's determined based on what zone you're in. All of those things that are important to you. Does the X zone flood? If you're going like this, start going like this. The X zone floods. And if you're in the X zone and you weren't in the X zone the last time the maps came out, but now you're in the X zone, guess what? Flooded before, you're probably going to flood again. And if you made a decision to drop your flood insurance because you're now in the X zone, I would just encourage you to revisit that. We've heard that there have been a lot of people who have left the flood insurance program because of the changes in the flood maps, and they may have dropped their flood insurance policy. I realize that it's an expensive thing to have. It's a challenge sometimes to pay it, but if you don't have it, there's not much else out there for you to start that recovery process. Yes, sir. Yeah, we talked to Noah. Yeah, Noah Gilligan is our planning director. They left out storms. They left out storms when they did the mapping. But part of it was the south side storms, but they left out storms. I would say the flood maps that we currently have in place do not represent what has happened on Hatteras Island or happened in Dare County in the past. They've changed, which is probably good if you wanted to get a lower insurance rate. But if you're in the X zone, you can be in a different zone, keep that flood insurance. It's going to be there for you. It's never too late. But if you did drop it, you want to get it back, it takes 30 days to get it in place. But insurance is a key piece for everybody to have that blanket to help you recover. The X zone does flood. This is a little bit, Eric mentioned I was going to talk about storm surge. This is another video about how deep it will get. It's put together. Hopefully it'll give you some insights. And I think it talks about finding gauges. We have finding gauges out here. Some of them work and don't work. But this is a video about some of that, how deep it will get.
Most people know what to expect and do when the National Weather Service issues severe weather watches and warnings. When a hurricane warning is issued, They know it is time to finish preparations and evacuate, since hurricane force winds are expected in the next 36 hours, making outdoor activity unsafe. But not everyone knows what to do when a storm surge watch or warning is issued, or just how life-threatening storm surge can be.
I'm Jamie Rome, Deputy Director with the National Hurricane Center. Did you know that storm surge is often the deadliest and most hazardous part of a hurricane? And while our ability to forecast and warn on this hazard has dramatically improved over the years, we're now working on public awareness with our partnership with Dare County.
Now, new technology and interactive displays on the Outer Banks are aiming to change.
Over the past 10 years, storm surge forecasting has really changed at the Hurricane Center. They started to use depth above ground. And as we started to see those products come out, we started to see people going, what's that actually mean? And then we had some storms that impacted us here on Bay Drive, Tropical Storm Michael, where we saw rapidly rising water levels that were forecast to be 2 to 4 feet above ground. And we had a lot of people get impacted by it. Their cars got flooded, their homes got water into them. They felt like they weren't informed about how deep it was going to get. Led us to think that we needed to help people understand what those forecast products mean and really how deep it might be.
As Director of Emergency Management for Dare County, Drew Pearson began to develop a new kind of display that could easily be understood by every passerby.
We wanted to make people aware how deep it might get by putting this pole out in 3-foot increments, but we also put an interpretive display out that explains not just the pole, but the products that are put out by the Hurricane Center. So we're hopeful that people can come out, take a look at the displays, take a look at how deep it might get, and then go back home and realize when they say there's going to be 1 to 3 feet of storm surge in their community, it's going to get up to here.
Each color on the 12-foot pole represents 3 feet of water above ground. The eye-catching colors are the same ones used by the National Hurricane Center on their inundation maps.
I'm truly hopeful that every resident, visitor, and person who comes to the Outer Banks who sees one will know what they need to do when the storm surge forecast is issued to protect their lives and property. Our mission will be complete if we don't have cars inundated with water, if we don't have people stuck in their homes as rapidly rising water comes around their home and comes up into their living spaces. And I'll call it mission complete if we have people saying, I saw that display, I knew what I needed to do when the forecast came out.
The storm surge poles have been placed at 27 locations around the Outer Banks, including town halls, beach accesses, the ferry terminal, and sound access points.
Across the country, there's been various efforts to really try to demonstrate water level, especially when it comes to storm surge. We have a new partnership with Dare County. We are so excited. We are actually going to get a storm surge pole that we can use to demonstrate both on media interviews, tours, to actually show those water levels.
While understanding storm surge is important, actually knowing when water levels are changing is just as critical. To improve water level monitoring and alerting, Dare County has installed 12 new flood gauges. The gauges will become part of North Carolina's emergency management statewide effort to support risk-based decisions regarding flooding using the Flood Inundation Mapping and Alerting Network, also known as FIME.
These flood inundation mapping and alerting network system gauges that we're having installed, there's a box that's installed on the side up here. It's got a sensor that comes out. In that sensor, it sends a signal down to the water and it comes back up. As the water level changes, the signal distance changes and it tells us whether it's going up or down.
Anyone can view water levels and sign up for alerts from local fireman gauges at fireman.oc.gov. In addition to use by the general public, the National Weather Service uses gauge information to refine their forecast and warning products.
Dare County's new gauges are adding tools to our toolbox that can help us with rising ocean and soundside water level rises. We're so excited about the new real-time water level information that's available. Having it will help us improve our forecasting products, which will help us carry out our mission of protecting life and property.
With better ways to measure floodwaters and increased awareness of what surging waters can do, hopefully Outer Banks locals and visitors will now know what to do in the event of a storm surge warning.
Two pieces on that. Jamie Rome is a North Carolinian. He was an NC State grad, I think Rocky Mount for Roanoke Rapids. I think he grew up somewhere there. He knows us. He cares about us. And he's on the phone with us telling us what the problems are going to be when they're forecasting storm surge. The Feynman website that's up there is now outdated. They just transitioned to a better looking interface website. You can still go in and sign up for alerts. It's been updated. I know some of you are very in tune with our Feynman gauges, and we really appreciate it. Because if you notice it's not working, you call me, you call the state, we try to get it fixed. Some of them don't work all the time, but the state's responsible for maintaining those. But the Feynman gauges will tell you when it's coming up. For somebody who lives on the sound side, it'll tell you when it's going down too. And when it's going that way, you know it's going to be coming back. And it'll start to tell you when it's coming back. But Feynman is a good tool as well. But hopefully that gave you some insight into how people will get, and how you can know what it's going to do. Eric mentioned evacuation zone. How many do you think we have in the county? 2. Hatteras Island and everywhere else. All right. So Hatteras Island is Zone A. We do message it as Zone A, but then we go and say Hatteras Island and the villages, blah, 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 all the way down. When we do those evacuation orders, and Zone B is the rest. So in other jurisdictions, they may have 5 hurricane evacuation zones based on the impacts they may see, but here we have 2. If you still want to know which one you're in, you can go know your zone, your address in, and I'll tell you which zone you're in. But if you live on Hatteras Island, you're Zone A, and if you don't, you're in Zone B. But it is a great tool. And if you're visiting another coastal community and you're going to be there for a bit, you can look up the evacuation zone that you may be staying in while you're there. But know your zone is a great tool. Evacuation routes. How do you get off of Hatteras? And the circle is terrible, right? I mean, so the roundabout's not a great thing. I understand that, but you got to get off. You got to go north. You take the ferry to Cedar Island. But once you get up to the north, head west. And the routes tell you that. We have a little graphic that says use 64 instead of 158. You will get away from the beach quicker than going up to Tidewater. But if you're going up to shelter with somebody at Tidewater, go to Tidewater because that's the place to be. But if you're going somewhere else, think about going out 64 instead of 158. Have a plan. Even if you've been here forever and you're never going to evacuate, please, 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 at least have a plan. It's that life-threatening storm shit it's going to get you. Eric said it, I'm saying it. You ready to put that plan in action? You ready to have that emergency kit ready to go? You ready to get in the car and go somewhere? People ask me, Drew, what's your plan? My plan is going to work. My wife takes the emergency kit and goes to our kids in Virginia. Now, whether she executes that, I'll check on her when I get back, but we have a plan. Everybody should have that plan. And Eric said it too. If you got people coming down to visit you to enjoy the beach, go visit down. Because you do not want to be in a shelter. A shelter is not where you want to be. It's the last place you want to be. No amenities. You might not even have a hot meal. You might not even get a cot. You might get a blanket. You don't want to be in a shelter. Have a plan to go somewhere else where you can be safe with people you love and have your supplies with you. If all else fails, call us, numbers up there. We will transport you to a shelter. We will take as best care of you as we can, but we're going to leave you in a shelter and we will get you back. But have a plan that doesn't involve a shelter. Please have a plan that doesn't involve a shelter. And make those plans now. Write it down. Talk to your family about it. And let those people you're going to go visit know you're coming, so that they can have the house ready. If they're not going to be able to leave the key somewhere so you can get in. Have a plan. If you need help with stuff, Eric's website, the Weather Service website's a great one, readync.gov. There's a ton of stuff on readync.gov. Not just for hurricanes, but for all threats and all hazards across the state. But if you don't know what to put in that emergency kit, they got it on there. They got the list of things you should have, the medicines, everything you should have. readync.gov. And if you do have to execute your plan, you need to find a shelter because all else has failed. Go to readync.gov on your phone. You can click on the shelter page and it'll give you a list of all the shelters that are open in the state of North Carolina so you can find a place to go. Don't go to a shelter. Go somewhere else. Have a plan. It doesn't include a shelter. All those failed, so you can still get to one. Okay? sometimes we need help. This is a quick video on our special medical needs registry. We have an amazing social services department in our county. They do amazing work day in and day out, but they also maintain a special medical needs registry. I'll let you, I can't make that go away.
I'm Chuck Lystedt, Director of the Division of Social Services of the Dare County Department of Health and Human Services. The Special Medical Needs Registry is an emergency preparedness tool used by Dare County for communicating with medically fragile individuals for pre-event planning and if needed for evacuating before a disaster. Our Adult Services Unit oversees the registry for Dare County residents. Who should register for the Special Medical Needs Registry? Dare County residents who would need assistance with medical care,
These government computers, I don't know what's that.
Well, we're taking care of that. Jess over there, one of our fantastic social workers. Point out Jess, and Jess, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Anything you want to add about?
your personal care during an evacuation or hurricane, those who may need assistance while they are sheltering during a storm due to their physical and/or mental impairments should register. The registry is not just for the elderly population in Dare County. It's not just for social services clients. Participation in the registry is voluntary. All information will be kept private and confidential. Also, anyone who uses oxygen and/or receives dialysis is strongly encouraged to register. These are two critical needs that can be impacted if access is limited to where the person lives after the event or if power is lost during the event. The Special Medical Needs Registry is important because Dare County and local municipality officials also need to know where the area's most vulnerable residents are so that they can contact them quickly before and after an emergency occurs. Once you register, you will remain on the registry and do not need to re-register each year. Each May, a social worker will contact you to verify and update your information. Each time an event is approaching, you will be contacted. Based on the information you provided, we will work with you to make sure you are ready to implement your evacuation plan. We will remind you to take your essential medications and medical supplies, medical equipment, any special food you require, important documents, and a driver's license or other identification. If an evacuation is ordered, we can assist with transportation to a shelter. Individuals who require a dialysis or oxygen will be evacuated to a location in proximity to these services. As a reminder, plan ahead for disasters as resources can be very limited during an emergency. In addition to registering for the special medical needs, it is important that you take a few minutes to register for OBX alerts and create a smart 911 profile. By completing both, you will receive public safety and routine alerts and notifications from local officials, and we will be able to review your potential needs as we prepare for a storm. Finally, develop your evacuation plan now, including where you will go and how you will get there. If you or someone you know may benefit from being added to the Special Medical Needs Registry, please visit darenc.gov/special needs or call the Division of Social Services at 475-5502.
I can't say enough about us, guys, everybody in that social services. They are an amazing group of people. You're lucky to be in Dare County. I talked to my peers in other counties around us. They don't have that. We are lucky to have that. And it's not just, if you know somebody, you might need to share that information with. And you'll get the most caring phone call from somebody once a year. They'll call the checkup line.
I have insulin pumps and they call me. I don't know how I got on that. I guess
I didn't know.
old. But it's really good and they call like 11 a.m. just so you know. I don't know about just that.
But it is a great tool. It's available to anybody. And Chuck mentioned the OBX alerts. How many people have signed up for OBX alerts? I'm not going to play that there's a video in here. I'm going to play it because almost every hand went up. For those people that didn't put their hand up, please go to obxalerts.com and register, sign up for alerts. It is one of the trusted sources of information. You get to pick what you want to get, the information you want to get. You get to turn it off if you get tired of it, because it's your profile, you can manage it. And you can put a lot of information in there about yourself as well. And we can pull that information. We can't see it all, but we can know where people may have people that may need help. We can do that. That's our way to get to people that want us to get to them. We have a way to get to you when we don't want to get it. You don't want us to get to you, and that's called Avon, the Integrated Public Warning System. That is what we're an authorized authority to send out wireless electronic alerts. That is that alert that makes your phone shake. That's the alert similar to an Amber Alert. We can utilize that to get information to people. When will you get that during a hurricane? Mandatory evacuation order is issued. That's going to come out. We get information that something's changed rapidly. It's going to come out and your phone's going to shake. It's only going to shake if you have government notifications turned on. The only one that you'll get if you haven't turned off is something that comes from the White House. But if you have it, it's not as a political thing from the White House, but as an emergency alert from the White House. But if you have it, government alerts turned off, you're not going to get it from us. You're not going to get the tornado watch or warning. You're not going to get the evacuation order. You're not going to get the things you need to do. So please make sure on your phone that you have government alerts turned on. Android and Apple are different, but please make sure those are turned on so you can get those alerts all the time.
Whether you
I'm going to skip through this one because since you all signed up already. Ocean hazards. Eric mentioned those distant things that kill people.
Well, I have a question. That looks like there was a permit to get back on.
And we're going back. That's the next slide.
Okay.
We'll get to that in a second. One more click to go.
Thank you.
One more click to go. I'm not jumping over that. I'm not scared of that slide. I'm coming back to that one. But I'll get to that one. But ocean hazards are hurt. If you have people that are visiting with us, please have them text OBX Beach Conditions 77295. They'll get the beach forecast. I'll get updates as conditions change. Eric mentioned Lorenzo took 4 lives. We've lost 1 life in Dare County already. A young man up in Nag's Head on July 3rd. Young, like 13 years old. A 13-year-old up in Corolla just a couple days ago. Please keep an eye on where that's a good way to do it. I'm hoping this is the reentry one. There we go. I didn't skip over it. I'm not that quick on the clicker. But please realize that all decisions on reentry are made based on public safety. We want to get back open as quickly as we can. But if we've been devastated, we want to make sure we can bring you back to an almost safe spot. We have to be able to deliver services. We've got a lot of firefighters in here. They've been working their tails off. We want to be able, we can still get out and fight a fire. Our EMS stations, we got to get them back up and manned. We may not be here all the time. Sheriff's office may be spread thin. We have to make sure we have those things in place to allow you to get back. And the decisions are driven by public safety across the county, from Duck to Hatteras Village. The decision to reopen is driven by public safety. This can take a long time. On a storm where things go by very quickly and it's come and gone, we haven't had a lot of impacts. We're able to deliver the services we need to do. We can open up in a matter of a light switch. We didn't see those impacts. Some of you all lived through the ones that have taken a really long time. This can take a long time. So we're doing our best. We want to get open. We want to get you back. If we don't get you back, we're not getting up and running again. The residents who live here, not just live here, the retirees, they're the workforce. We need to get the workforce back, to open up the restaurants, open up the stores, get our economy going, but we got to do it when it's safe. So third time, it takes a long time. But we do use a staged order to bring people back. We got priority 1, that's our first responders. We need to get them back, doctors, nurses, things like that. Priority 2 are our residents and our critical businesses. We want to get you all back so you get back to your home, start the recovery process, start to see what happened, what didn't happen. And I think Eric said it. We'd much rather be able to come back and find out what happened than having us dig you out of what happened. We want to make sure you're safe when you come back. Then we bring back our non-resident property owners, non-critical businesses, then we're opening up to the public. If you haven't already gotten a re-entry permit, you can go to the website, or go to our website, type in re-entry. If you're a Dare County resident with a driver's license that says it's got a Dare County address on it, you can just show that at the checkpoint. I do encourage you to get a re-entry permit. If you have this 8x10 piece of paper in the window, you're prepared to hold it up to that driver's license, show you might get through a little quicker. But they are going to stop and check those driver's licenses and compare them to the reentry permit. Because we want to make sure that people are coming back need to be back, not people who are just coming back for the heck. Okay? So did I hit it?
You did, thank you.
All right.
Are the non-critical businesses that are registered and like previously, are they still in the system or do you have to be registered?
Yes.
There are.
Businesses will carry over from year to year. Yeah, permits last year for your business, and this permit will still be in there. Yeah, and then the businesses can manage their own permits. We set them up, we give them access to it. If the owner or the manager of the permits has changed, you need to let us know because we have to go and update that. Yep. Re-entry. This is my last slide, second to last slide. I'm going to say, don't be Tom, be Debbie. Hopefully you'll understand why in a minute.
You can't realize what your house is like when it starts flooding. Everything floats. You can't get down the hallway. You got to fight to get where you're going. But there was flexible. You can't hold it. I don't know how long we held it. I don't know how high this water's gonna get. We're gonna be trapped like rats in here. I saw Jeff outside that door.
This video is obviously a real life story that's being told. This is from Michael on the Gulf Coast of Florida when he made landfall. Landfall is rapidly intensifying 4 to a 5, I believe. And with a, I think it was 9 to 14-foot storm surge that took place down there. And this is Debbie.
When the word came out that there was mandatory evacuation, we evacuated. We might not be here if we had. I just feel numb. I don't think we processed it yet.
Please have a plan. Get ready. As Eric said, don't focus on that category. It's the impacts that are going to get us. We're not going to a shelter, right? Get anybody convinced that they have a plan, not going to a shelter. But in all seriousness, we're here to help and answer questions. I know Eric and James and I are here, and if there are any questions, please let us know. We do have some more hurricane guides. Anything you might need, we're here for you all, and thank you all for coming out. I might have said it when I started, I probably forgot. We did one of these up at Jeanette's Pier. You guys not rocking. We had about 10 people. You guys rocking. So thank you all for coming out down here. It's been fun.
As you leave, definitely grab some of the brochures. Dare County, the hurricane guide Drew talked about is up here. And not everybody could be here today. Share it with the neighbor that couldn't make it. If the recording worked, which I think it did, we'll post it to YouTube. So NWS Morehead City, it'll be on there, so share it with them. Really appreciate you taking the time. It's a great day. You could be doing a lot of other things. So we appreciate you taking the time to join us.